I've seen so many people recreate Ariana Grande's We Can't Be Friends iconic makeup look, and I really wanted to recreate it on a doll. The only problem was I did not have an Ariana Grande doll, so I had to make it myself. I feel like this Barbie Looks doll is the perfect candidate. Can you see the resemblance? No? Let's see if she can do a good enough job anyway. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel where I make custom Barbie and LOL dolls with a focus on realistic repaints inspired by characters from movies and series, as well as recreating pop culture icons such as this one. I'm usually not a huge Ariana Grande fan. Not that I do not like her, I just don't tend to listen to her music a lot. But I thought the We Can't Be Friends video was so intriguing. I loved the concept of it and I loved seeing so many videos of people recreating the makeup look. Since there's no official Ariana Grande fashion doll released by Barbie or by any other brand that I know of, editing me here, when I first started working on this doll and recorded the intro, the Glinda Wicked Barbie doll hadn't been announced yet. However, in the months that have passed since then, Mattel not only announced the Ariana Wicked doll, but they've also released some promotional photos, and the doll is set to release in just a few days, on September 28th. But if you still want to know how I improvised without having the official Ariana Barbie on hand, stay tuned. The first step of creating this custom doll was looking for a face mold that would serve as a good enough canvas for the repaint. Since I preferably wanted a doll that had both the proper face mold as well as good enough hair to avoid having to do a reroute, my choice fell onto the Barbie Looks doll number 15. While her hair isn't quite as light as Ariana's is in the video, I did not want a completely blonde doll either, as Ariana does have some dark roots showing and as her natural hair color is a darker one as well. Regarding the face mold, I feel like it's an absolutely perfect fit. And even though I'll have quite some work to do on her face, I personally think that even with her current face paint on, she already has some resemblance to Ariana. But enough talking, let's get into the video and see if we can enhance that resemblance. Using a Barbie Looks doll as a base is great because she already has a made-to-move body, so no need for a body donor. This one comes with a petite body, which works perfectly since Ariana is just over 5 feet tall. That's 154 centimeters. The doll is quite tanned and honestly, I initially thought Ariana was Latina and figured this would be a good match. After I had already started working on her, I learned that she's not, but she does have a bit of a tan, so I think the skin tone works quite well anyway. Barbie Looks dolls also come with dents, but in my experience, the clamps break pretty easily. Though that could just be my clumsiness. You still might want to handle them with a little more care than I did, just in case. With the base doll ready, I start by removing the face with pure acetone. Then I warm the vinyl with hot water to take off the head. I seal the clean face using Citadel Munitorum varnish, which I also use to seal the watercolor pencils between layers. I'm using Faber Castel Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencils, and the first layer doesn't show up very boldly, which I kind of like because it lets me seal a rough sketch before adding more detail. Once sealed, I can even use an eraser without ruining the work underneath. Building up the face layer by layer secures each step, so if I make a mistake, I don't have to start from scratch. If you want the pencils to show up more, avoid spraying too much sealant at once. I learned this the hard way. Only spraying lightly and from a distance creates more texture and gives better results. Make sure not to use Citadel Munitorum as well as most other spray-based sealants when humidity is over 60%. You can check your phone's weather app or a hygrometer to see the current humidity. Where I live, the humidity for the last couple of months would hardly ever drop below 60%, and when I tried spraying anyway, the high humidity caused the sealed face to frost, leaving it covered in white. As a solution, I have now set up a tent on my terrace as a little work base, where I keep the humidity down using an electric dehumidifier, which allows me to spray without having to worry about ruining my work. However, I still run a test spray on a spare doll head just in case, to avoid any issues on the actual head I'm working on. Remember to always wear a mask when using sealant spray and make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. Because of the spray's toxicity, I avoid spraying indoors, which makes a tent a perfect solution. Once the face is done, I move on to the doll's body. I had initially planned to shade the body for a slightly lighter skin tone. I tried using Rembrandt soft pastels to lighten the face a little, but the difference is barely noticeable, so I am leaving the body as is. Next up are Ariana's tattoos. She has many, but I decided to include only the ones on her hands and a small one on her arm. After some research, I noticed that she seems to cover up some of her tattoos during certain performances, so I am sticking with what's most noticeably visible in the We Can't Be Friends music video. I draw the tattoos on with black watercolor pencil, then I seal them with the Citadel Munitorum spray. You can notice some frosting on the hands and arms, as I didn't have my work tent set up yet, but it's not too noticeable, so I decided not to redo them. The body is done, so now onto the clothes. I am planning to sew clothes for future projects, but for this one I got away with customizing clothes without sewing. I'm using Barbie Fashionista number 199's dress as a base, which roughly matches Ariana's skirt and shirt combo. To paint the dress, I put it on a spare Hasbro body left over from my Beauty and the Beast ball transformation. This way I can paint both the front and back at once and get a better feel for the final result, rather than just painting it flat. I picked up these textile paints from my local hardware store, and since I only have these basic colors consisting of white, black, blue, red and yellow, I mixed them to get the exact shades I need. The fabric became quite stiff from the paint, so I probably should have thinned it with more water. Still, the paint hasn't chipped off, and I actually like the texture it gave the skirt. Since it's meant to be denim, the thin fabric of the original dress wouldn't have worked. So the stiffness mostly bothers me with the top part, where I might have used a little less paint. The instructions say to iron the reverse side of the painted fabric, but instead I use hot water to warm everything up before removing the dress. I'm not sure if the heat alone helped at all, or if steam would have been better, but the paint stayed on perfectly when I transferred the dress onto Ariana's made-to-move body. For the boots, I'm starting with these purple cow print boots from a Barbie fashion pack. First, I remove the cow print with pure acetone, then I paint the boots brown with acrylic paints and use wooden skewers as stands while they dry. If you try this, you can use blue tack or Play-Doh to hold the skewers inside the boots. This makes painting easier and keeps you from peeling off the paint or accidentally painting your fingers. I seal the painted boots using Citadel Munitorum spray, then start on the upper part of the boots. I make stencils from paper and cut out some brown fabric, leaving extra for the seams. I glue the fabric to the paper and after it dries, fold the remaining fabric to glue the seams. Once dry, I use the same glue to attach the upper parts of the boots to the plastic base, and I attach some small elastics to hold everything in place while it dries. Initially, I was going to leave the boots as they are now, but I don't like how they turned out. So I decided to cover the painted plastic with fabric too. I make another paper stencil, but this time I skip gluing the paper to the fabric to avoid making it too thick. Instead, I glue the fabric directly onto the boots. That looks much better. However, when I tried the boots on the doll, I'm not happy with how much they stick out at the back, so I add a simple closure with a needle and yarn. This shows why I've avoided sewing clothes so far. I struggled a lot to make it look halfway decent, but at least the boots fit properly now and look much better from the front. The only thing missing now are the flowers. To create them, I used the same fabric paints I used for the dress. Somehow, this brings everything together perfectly, and I'm really happy with the result. Now that the clothes are done, it's time to make some accessories. The grey scarf that matches her shirt, some earrings, her necklace, and the teddy bear. I ordered the same teddy bear that Ariana uses in the We Can't Be Friends music video on Amazon because I have a fun idea for a YouTube short with the finished doll, and will need the life-size bear for the short. As a bonus, I can also use it as a template for crafting the 1/6 scale version for the doll. First, I sketched the bear to the correct scale to use as a guide for sculpting. Then I sculpt the bear using glass eyes and epoxy clay. It's important to wear gloves when working with epoxy since it's highly toxic. Even if you don't feel the effects immediately, you can develop a severe epoxy allergy over time, so always handle it with gloves. I take equal parts of each component, mix them together, and begin sculpting. This clay gives you about 3 hours of working time before it hardens. However, it's best to let it sit for at least 10 minutes after mixing. I was too impatient and started right away, which is probably what causes the bear to lose its shape easily at first. After a 15-minute break, the clay was much easier to handle. However, I end up running out of time while adding the texture, so as a result, only parts of the bear are actually textured. I let the clay cure overnight and then paint it using the same acrylic paints I used for the boots. I seal everything with a matte paint-on varnish to prevent frosting, and I use Liquitex gloss varnish to enhance the shine of the glass eyes. I use white elastic band to create the jumper's drawstrings. I originally planned to use white thread, but the elastic band was a much better match for the look. I'm really happy with how the teddy bear turned out, especially when you see it alongside the doll. However, the doll is still missing a few key details. Like her head, of course. But before attaching the head, I want to finish her necklace and scarf. For the necklace, I use a chain from a human-sized necklace and cut it down to fit the Ariana doll. I add a closure with a jump ring, though it won't open unless you bend it open with pliers, so I guess Ariana's stuck with this necklace forever. I use jewelry wire to add the pendant and paint it with Mod Podge mixed with acrylic paint. After that, I apply a glossy varnish and it's finished. In the music video, Ariana wears a peach necklace, which makes sense since her character's name is Peaches. The pendant I made isn't exactly recognizable as a peach, but given the scale, I think it works well enough. For the scarf, I use grey fabric from a patchwork fabric pack I ordered on Amazon. The pack comes with 40 pieces of fabric in different colors, each 10 by 10 inches, providing a great selection for doll clothes. Since I'm learning how to sew for future projects, these smaller fabric pieces have been a huge help. In local fabric stores, the minimum fabric size is usually way too large for doll clothes, so you end up using just a tiny piece of the purchased fabric. For example, I plan to sew a custom ball dress for another Beauty and the Beast doll that will consist of different shades of blue, red and white fabric, and buying fabric locally would leave me with these huge amounts of leftover material. These fabric packs solve that problem perfectly. I can easily pick the right shade of grey for the scarf. I roughly cut the fabric to size using sewing pins, fold over the edges and secure them with craft glue. I knot the scarf in the back and tuck the ends into the shirt to keep everything in place. Finally, before attaching the head, I create a basic diorama style backdrop. I designed it in Photoshop, drawing inspiration from both the hospital and arcade scenes in the video, rather than replicating any exact setting. The walls and floor are from a stock photo, and I add a slot machine with the screen from the We Can't Be Friends music video. Once the design is finished, I have it printed on A1 sized paper at a local copy shop. I also bought a wooden box to use as a stand for the backdrop, creating a diorama for photographing the finished doll. The box might be a bit large for permanent display, but I plan to reuse it for future photo shoots, swapping out backdrops for each doll. Setting up the backdrop as a diorama is a bit tricky, as I hadn't initially designed it for that purpose in Photoshop. I originally planned to use it as a flat backdrop with just the floor folded over. Bending the wall with the slot machine doesn't work right away and also makes the perspective look a little bit odd, so I have to improvise a little. Next up are the doll's hair, earrings and white flower makeup. I practice on a test Barbie head first to avoid messing up the finished Ariana head. I use a flat iron with adjustable temperature to style the hair. I set it around 180 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 80 degrees Celsius, to prevent melting. Different hair types like nylon, saran or polypropylen have varying melting points. 320 and 340 degrees Fahrenheit for saran and polypropylen respectively. For nylon hair, the melting point can vary greatly depending on the exact type of hair. There's nylon hair that melts at 190 degrees Fahrenheit, as well as nylon hair that has a melting point of 425 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're unsure about your doll's hair type, it's best to play it safe and avoid any accidents. I utilized the brown elastic that originally came with the Ariana doll to tie the ponytail. Then I used a flat iron to flatten the hair. Opposed to my test doll hair, her hair is long enough so that the ponytail looks decent without requiring extensive styling. For the earrings, I start out using these pearl-colored sewing pins, but they look way too big for what I had in mind. So I improvise by using the basic silver metal pins, and I add my own pearls using a glue gun and transparent glue. I was going to paint the glue, but the silver metal shining through already gives them a nice pearl finish, so there's no need for painting. I experiment with different sizes and pinning them in like real earrings, but I'm not very happy with the result. So for the actual Ariana doll, I try a different approach. I clip off the metal pins, which allows me to position the pearls at a different angle. I then secure them with UV resin and cure the resin with my UV flashlight. And I like that much better than the results I got when actually pinning them in. For the white flower makeup, I use a dotting tool and white acrylic paint, but this looks a bit too bold for what I had in mind. The original makeup in the music video is much softer and not laid on as thickly. You can even see some pencil strokes if you look closely. Also, ideally, I'd like a solution that's less permanent. It would be awesome if the white flower could be removed later on in order to reuse the Ariana doll for other projects where she isn't wearing the We Can't Be Friends makeup. I experiment with cutting out and gluing on tiny flowers from tissue paper, but the paper keeps ripping and the result doesn't look as well as I had imagined. I initially discard using the Faber Castel white watercolor pencil as it tends to require multiple layers to show up. Other brands like Rembrandt watercolor pencils might be more effective, but I didn't have them on hand. So instead I wet the white pencil with some water before applying it to the doll's face. This way it shows up enough to be visible without being as bold as acrylic paint. Finally, I attach the head back onto the made-to-move body. And here are the final results. So these are the final results. Do you like them? And do you think that the doll ended up resembling Ariana Grande even though it wasn't a custom face mold created specifically for her face? If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it a lot if you could leave a like or a comment. And if you want to see more of my doll transformations, feel free to subscribe. I've just started out, but I already got one other video up where I repaint an Emma Watson Beauty and the Beast doll. And I'm already working on a few different repaints, so there will be new content coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye!